Good hand technique on the drums ensures that you can practice more effectively, keep yourself healthy and pain-free in the long term, and can play what you want because the sticks work for you instead of getting in your way. In this video, I'll show you the most important basis for exactly that. The sooner you create this foundation, the better. But this video is also aimed at advanced drummers who want to improve their technique. I have done the exercises that I am about to show you with countless students, many of whom have been playing for years, and they have helped them overcome cramps or pain and to take their playing to a whole new level. And of course, the same applies for you. So if you've been playing for a while and think it can't be right that you're breaking so many sticks, heads and cymbals, then you've come to the right place. Just like those who want to learn to play faster, those who are looking for a recipe against tension and pain, and beginners who want to lay a good and secure foundation. I'll show you how you can tell whether you're playing relaxed enough or not, and how you can loosen tension. I'll give you concrete exercises and a whole range of problem-solving strategies in case you reach your limits here. And at the end, you will receive a number of practical tips that will help you to design your learning process independently. Those who have already subscribed know this about me. My goal is to help you become independent learners by showing you flexible principles and exercise concepts. This means you can then achieve your personal goals in your own way because you become self-reliant. If you like this idea, subscribe now and browse through my channel. There you will find already around 200 videos for effective and healthy learning, and of course some videos specifically about playing the drums for beginners, advanced players and those with professional ambitions. Let's start with a quick checklist. Ask yourself these 8 questions to see if you tend to be tense when playing. First, how quickly do you break your sticks? After 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months? Of course, this depends very much on the style of music. As a quick perspective, when I play rock or metal, sticks usually last 3 to 6 hours of pure playing time. When I focus on being very relaxed, sometimes up to 10. Then they break in the middle because I'm playing with rim shots on the snare. That means hitting the head and the hoop at the same time. When I take a new pair for a show, it almost never happens that they break during the performance. With quiet music, the shoulder of the stick wears down over time from playing the hi-hat and cymbals. They sometimes last for 50 hours of playing time, and I can easily take a pair for about 10 gigs. If you regularly see a smooth break without having played the sticks very far down beforehand, then that is a warning sign. Then you either have sticks that are of poor quality, too thin, or of material that is too light, or you're holding the sticks way too tightly. Secondly, do you have dents in your heads after just a few days? You can see this very clearly in reflecting light if you take them off and turn them over. Number 3, do you often break cymbals? If you don't use cheap gear here again, ideally this happens a maximum of once or twice a year, even if you play a lot of loud music. If you produce a lot of scrap metal, then you have hung the cymbals too high or facing away from you, so you hit the edge at an angle and not straight down, or it is mounted too tight. Or you don't have the right technique yet. Fourth, do you ever get blisters on your fingers from playing? This is a big warning sign that you are gripping too hard and creating too much friction. Blisters shouldn't happen at all. This only happens to me when I've been playing quieter music for a long time and then suddenly play heavy metal for several hours a day because, for example, I have to prepare at short notice for a show that I'm booked for. But otherwise, if you improve slowly over a long period of time, you shouldn't get blisters even if you play every day. But they can also come from playing sticks that are too thick or too heavy. More about stick selection later. Fifth, do you occasionally feel pain during or after playing? Maybe sore muscles too? This shouldn't normally happen either and is again a big warning sign. 6. Look at videos or photos of yourself playing. Do you have a healthy upright posture or do you sit slouched? Do you even see muscles or tendons protruding due to tension? Here are a few nice examples. You can see the concentration and dedication on the face, but the fingers are still relaxed and only guide the stick instead of holding it tightly. Number 7. How often do you lose a stick while playing? Every few minutes is definitely not good, but if it never happens, that's at least as bad. More on that in a moment. And 8. Take a close look at your hands while playing. Do you see any white spots on the fingers or knuckles? We want to avoid that too, and I'm about to show you how we do it. So, self-monitoring and reflection is the key. Only when you know where you stand can you start on a path to improvement. When practicing, reflect again and again by setting up a mirror to correct your posture and technique, filming yourself every now and then or having yourself filmed, and always questioning whether you are relaxed enough and where you can still improve your technique. And now I'll show you specifically how you can gain more relaxation and at the same time more control. First of all, let's go through the basic hand position. Here the principle applies: as much as necessary, as little as possible. So we want to have maximum control with as little influence as possible. We do this by having a lot of contact with the stick, but applying very little pressure. Many people do the opposite. They hold the stick tightly between their thumb and index finger and stretch out the back fingers. Instead, we let the stick rest loosely in our fingers and guide it between our thumb and index finger without bending it around the stick. So it looks like the index finger is just hanging on the side of the stick. This is because the fulcrum is not necessarily between the thumb and the index finger, but often more towards the middle finger. The stick can move up and down freely when not restricted. It is therefore important that there is a gap between the thumb and the index finger above the stick. I can see how loosely you are holding the stick only by looking at this gap. The smaller, the more tension. The bigger, the more relaxation. Ideally, if you hold your hands in the basic position, you can see the stick between your thumb and your index finger. For this, we should be in the so-called American grip. This means that we don't keep our forearms completely parallel, but rather our hands are a little further together than our elbows. The thumbnail points roughly towards the opposite shoulder or slightly below. This position allows the wrist to move freely. The sticks are not a direct extension of the arm, because for this we would have to hyperextend the wrist outwards. This is now our starting position. You can easily find it like this. Take a ball and throw it loosely onto the pad or snare, and then let your hand just hang relaxed. Now just put the stick in with your other hand and close your fingers just enough so it doesn't fall out. All fingers are in contact, but do not exert pressure. The nice thing about this approach is that you can find your perfect grip, because we all have slightly different proportions. Because of this, your ideal grip might look different from mine, but the same basic principles apply. And of course, the grip also changes. We don't hold the stick, we guide it and use this dynamic interface to play different things. Faster finger strokes are more efficient in the French grip, for example. A good basic grip is important, but what matters is how we interact with the stick. And now I'll show you the best way to do it. If possible, you should do the following exercises on a practice pad, but it also works on the drum set. It's best to have several pairs of sticks at hand, because the first exercise looks like this. You hold the stick in the starting position and then just throw it away. Sounds silly, but this is such an important point. First of all, we want to lose the fear of letting go of the stick. If you often have blisters, break sticks and make dents in your heads, then you are still holding the stick too tightly. We now want to experience what the opposite would feel like, so we can then move the controller a bit back, but much further in the direction of looseness. We can also practice the movement for loud strokes like this. It's a whipping motion, like when we throw a ball. Now go and do this a few times and, above all, a few times more often with your weak hand. In the second step, we do the same thing, but throw the stick onto the practice pad or onto different parts of the drum set. Most of you have probably never done this before, but this is very important. We want to observe and get to know the stick and its behavior. What characteristics does it have on its own? How does it behave when I let it completely free? And then we see that there is a lot of potential there. The stick still has quite a bit of energy after impact. It has to go somewhere. If we hold onto the stick, our body absorbs this energy and this causes pain and in the long term even damage to the joints. Not to mention the fact that a large part of it goes into our equipment and costs us a lot of money in the long run because we break it. Instead, we want to learn to use this energy to make the stick work for us. By the way, when I do this exercise with my students, I stand next to them with a whole bunch of sticks and always give them new ones so that they can do it very often and observe the stick. But more importantly, they lose the inhibition to let go of the stick because they are relaxed, because there are enough replacements. So also for you, always have spare sticks within reach when practicing, rehearsing and on stage, and over time you will lose the fear of losing them. Now we want to redirect this energy that is still in the stick and use it for our own benefit. Hold the stick as you just learned and so loosely that it almost falls out of your hand. Then you hit the pad or snare loosely but firmly and give the stick the opportunity to fly back out of your hand. So we don't actively throw it away, but simply give the stick the chance to slip backwards and out of the hand using the energy of the rebound. Now try this a few times with both hands, but don't throw it away on purpose. Just be so loose that it could slip out of your hand after the stroke and give yourself time to find the starting position again for each stroke. When I do this with my students, there's something amazing happening almost always. They are really willing to let go of the stick, and even though I'm standing next to them with my bunch of spare sticks, I usually don't need them. Because even though they hold the stick as loosely as possible so that it flies backwards, it simply jumps back into the area between the index finger and the thumb by pushing open the back fingers. So we don't stretch them away, we always have contact with the stick and therefore a lot of sensory feedback and control, but we're very soft and relaxed so that the rebound can do its work. And that's what I mean by relaxation and simultaneous control. With a lot of contact surface, we always know where the stick is. It doesn't break out to the side, so we control the direction of movement with this light touch, and the friction is also distributed and doesn't accumulate at the fulcrum, for example. What you can also do is to hold one stick above the middle of your other forearm and now try to let the sticks hit each other using only the rebound. It's amazing how little influence we need to control the stick, how loose we can be, and it still stays in our hand. Do this and the next exercise for a few weeks as a warm-up and again with your weak hand for longer than with your strong hand. And try it on different parts of the drum kit to get the feel of what it would be like to play the whole set like this. But even if you don't play it this way all the time, try to maintain that feeling of rebound and that openness. Then you will move significantly further towards looseness on the scale. And if you miss a part of the drum kit and the stick flies out of your hand, that's a good sign because it shows that you're relaxed. We need the rebound to get the stick back up in our hands. And this is also why I'm not a fan of air drumming or apps and devices that allegedly let you practice the drums everywhere, every time, like Aerodrum or Free Drum. Those are toys, but you cannot practice playing the drums realistically like that. If you don't have a surface giving you a rebound, you have to grip the sticks more tightly as not to lose them, and you're really tugging at your muscles in your forearm, so you tense up further, might even hurt yourself, and without the rebound, you practice to lift up the sticks again on your own. So these kind of devices might interfere with your progress towards looseness and even actively deteriorate your technique. In the next step, we now practice continuous strokes. We do exactly the same thing as before, but when the stick jumps back, we go along with it a little so that together with the stick, we immediately follow up with the next wind-up motion and immediately make the next stroke. So we want to try keep the stick moving permanently with as little influence as possible. It's like dribbling a ball. We don't do it by pressing it down and lifting it up again, but that's how a lot of people play the drums. They hold the stick firmly, push it down and then lift it up again themselves. It would be better like this. You give a slightly stronger impulse once and keep it in motion by just going along with the movement and adding a little energy again and again. This is how you do it with a ball and with continuous strokes on the drum set. Move along with the natural trajectory of the stick and you will notice that you don't just move your wrist up and down, but a significant part of the power comes from the rotation of your forearm. That is good and even recommended. In the American grip, the stick is not an extension of your forearm, so some of the momentum comes from rotation of radius and ulna. This way, the stick itself can show us the most functional way to play if we give it space to do so. I guess many people would not have thought this and not have explained it like this either, but if we exert just as much pressure as necessary, the healthiest way reveals itself on its own. Here too, the first thing is to get a feeling for how little you have to do to make the rebound work for you. Do this until it feels very easy and natural, and then we can play faster. One of the most popular mistakes when learning the drums is to play everything you practice as quickly as possible right away and to push yourself to the limit. But at the limit, mistakes happen and you tense up. Then you practice that tension and make it harder for yourself in the long run. Stay at a very slow tempo for a few days or even weeks and really get used to this freedom and the feeling of dribbling. Once you have this foundation, speed will come naturally over time. So first go only as far as you can maintain this looseness. Relaxation is the basis for playing fast and you can and should practice it slowly at first. Because the limiting factor for speed is actually how quickly the stick is back up in the starting position for the next stroke. The rebound can completely do this work for us and is even faster than if we lift the stick again on our own. So if you want to play faster, you don't have to hit harder, you just have to relax and get out of the way of the rebound and start the next downward movement even earlier or simply make the radius smaller. The faster you play, the smaller the movements become. At the beginning, the upper arm is still active, then only the forearm, at some point just the hand, and then even only the fingers. But in any case, you are only making the downward movement. The stick always comes back on its own. Learning to allow and use this rebound is a very important foundation, because many advanced techniques only work because the rebound is an essential part. For example, double strokes, or the molar technique. The nice thing about these exercises is that you look at the result, not the implementation. Your body is proven to find the most efficient way to move when you aim for the desired result, rather than thinking too much about the position of your hand or which muscles you need to tense to achieve it and so on. So don't worry if it looks different for you than it does for me. You have different body proportions, use different sticks and so on. The main thing is that you become more relaxed in your own way and therefore play more efficiently and healthily. With this in mind, if you want to get even more out of these exercises and challenge your looseness even more, then practice them on a low-tuned floor tom, which has a poorer rebound. Because even if it's more difficult, it's still possible. And if you look at the result here again, over time you will learn to make even better use of the rebound. So a great exercise for advanced players would be playing rudiments or snare drum etudes on a low-tuned floor tom without yourself lifting the stick, just letting the rebound do it. Now a few tips if you still have problems with these exercises. If the stick doesn't spring back even though you've followed every step, here are 4 tips. First, find the best pivot point on the stick. It rotates around an imaginary axis between the thumb and the index finger, sometimes also the thumb and the middle finger. This is your fulcrum. You can find its most efficient position by holding the stick loosely between your front fingers and then letting it fall onto the pad or drum. Try it at different points, and where it jumps the longest is the best fulcrum. You can also hold it loosely and dribble it like a ball again with your other hand. Where it's easiest is where you should hold the stick. Most of the time it's approximately where the stick ends up sticking out of your hand by about an inch or a bit less. Second, try out other sticks. If they are very thick, especially in the front, it is harder to get a good rebound. If they are very thin, they are harder to control and do not have enough mass to push open the back fingers. The same applies to those that are very light. Very cheap ones simply have poor balance and no tension in the material, therefore a poorer rebound. ProMark even offers sticks that are designed to be extra top heavy and some that are optimized for rebound. Third, hit it hard. If little energy goes in, little energy comes back. If you are a cautious person, let go for once and just throw it down. You won't break anything that quickly. And fourth, some people lose the fulcrum completely. Of course, it is not fixed, it's also a dynamic concept and just an imaginary line. So the pivot point constantly shifts while playing. But there always has to be one. So be careful not to lose contact at the front and hold the stick only with the back fingers. Next problem. You play loosely, but the stick keeps slipping forward and would fall out of your hand if you didn't grip it tighter. There are solutions for this too. First of all, give yourself time. The problem is on your radar and you have an idea of how it should be. As I said, look at the result and your body will sort it out on its own. If it still doesn't get any better within a few weeks, try these tips. First, check your seat height and your setup. We should hit the drums and cymbals as flat as possible. If you sit too high or the drums are too low, especially the snare drum, very common mistake, the stick will rotate further than it should and the centrifugal force will pull it out of your fingers. So, see whether you can hit all the drums as flat as possible from a healthy upright position or whether they are tilted too much. Second, don't just let the stick do the rebound because it also has centrifugal force. Follow it along with your hand. Guide and direct the stick or let it guide your hand. This is what Jim Chapin calls the free stroke. Third, do not tighten up your wrist and strike with a wide arc, but rather do a whipping motion like a wave going through your arm. Here the hand makes more of an up and down movement. But of course, if you have heavy sticks and play hard, then there is a centrifugal force that cannot be ignored or eliminated, and we have to hold a little tighter during the stroke. The main thing is that we are relaxed at the moment of impact and do not absorb the energy in our joints. Also, do not only pinch harder at the front so that the area between the thumb and the index finger closes, but also grip a little tighter with the back fingers. Then press the stick into the soft ball of your hand. This means that the shock and friction are better distributed. And if you still need support for a firmer grip, you can use special tape or special sticks such as the Active Grip by ProMark. But be careful, better grip also means more friction, and that again could lead to blisters. That's why I'd rather give you my secret tip, which I regularly use: beeswax hand cream. This gives you a better grip and cares for and protects the skin at the same time. My favorite is this one by German company Lindesa. If anyone knows of an alternative, please write it in the comments. The same applies for any other helpful tips to improve one's grip without hurting the skin. Maybe there are some among you who have to deal with certain skin conditions or other physical handicaps and for whom my tips just don't work. Then I would be very happy if you shared your experiences and personal discoveries with all of us, and we can help each other, and there might even be a fruitful discussion in the comment section. That would be brilliant. And finally, as promised, a few general tips for your technique and looseness that will help you save yourself from frustration and monitor your progress independently. The first, warming up thoroughly remains one of the most important things of all. Before every rehearsal, every performance, even before practice, you have the chance to go through the basics again and consolidate them to work on ease in your grip each time and to get used to it. And if your fingers are cold, you'll be stiffer and grip tighter, which is exactly what we don't want. I also have a few videos about why warming up is so important, what you should keep in mind, and how I warm up. You can find the links in the description. But what if there is no space or no time for a thorough warm-up? You're not always so lucky and have a quiet backstage room and the drum techs set up the kit for us. We often do backline sharing and all the bands are in one small room, if at all. What do we do if that's the case? And shortly before the show we change cymbals, change cymbal stands and tighten screws, which causes us to cramp up again. On the one hand, somehow, somewhere take the time to prepare yourself. I've warmed up in the craziest places. Workshop, warehouse, in the club next door, in the car, outside in the summer. Once you've gotten into the swing of things, even if it's on the morning before the show, then you can later quickly return to this feeling you have acquired. It can be enough to simply take a few deep breaths right before the show, stretch your forearms lightly and simply shake out your hands to let go of any tension. I experienced how directly you can see the influence of tightness when I pulled the carpet with the drums on it forward from the wall right before the show, which caused my forearms to be totally strained. And then I didn't take the time to loosen up even for a minute because we started the show straight away. I broke 6 drumsticks that night, one even when counting in. Loosening up once, just for a minute, can save a lot of money. Second tip, find the right sticks not only for you but also for the respective style of music. For example, if the sticks are too thin and light when playing loud music, you intuitively grip too hard and hit with too much power to force out more volume. I also have a video on how to find the right stick for you, which I will link in the description. Third, view tension as a negative symptom. If something doesn't work for me, I scan my body for where I'm still tense and let go. It almost always works better. Tension is just a barrier, mental and physical, that stands between you and what you want to play. If you want to play louder, power doesn't matter. Use thicker sticks and practice the whipping motion instead of pressing the stick into the head. The little bit it makes you louder does a lot of damage to your body and your equipment. I said in the beginning, introspection is the key. So when practicing and playing, be alert to whether you are still exerting yourself and where you can let go even more. Fourth, there is no right answer or perfect technique. See it as a long-term process. Reflect constantly. You can always move the control a little towards looseness. Working slightly in this direction in the long term will bring you more than looking for a shortcut that is not sustainable. Even the best drummers take regular lessons to improve their technique and fundamentals, so we should all take the time to check our basics every now and then. And there are also learning plateaus and setbacks. And if you change your technique, some things will feel unfamiliar again at first. The main thing is that you stick with it. Trust the process. Learning the drums is a long journey of constant improvement. And this improvement is the sum of many small optimizations that do not have to be perfect on their own. Fifth, play and above all, think out of the drum. So we don't play on or even into the drums. We pull sounds out of them. The focus is on enabling the rebound. If you keep this in mind, several things will happen. Every exercise automatically becomes an exercise for technique and looseness at the same time. You will inject a song or whatever you practice with relaxation, which will make you sound better, and you will be able to practice longer and more effectively because you won't be exhausted so quickly or even hurt yourself. And number 6, learn to be happy when the stick flies away every now and then, because that is a good sign. If you're afraid of losing it, you hold the stick too tightly, and that's why it happens more often, because your muscles are exhausted. In addition, you will not be able to utilize all the potential of your hand technique, and you will panic if you lose the stick. Paradoxically, if you're not afraid of it, it happens less often and you deal with it more casually. So always have replacement sticks on both sides and actually practice pulling new ones. You will see it happens even to the best of drummers. And for them, it is completely normal and everyday. If we never lose the stick, we don't even know where the limit is. And for most people, there is still a lot of room to reach this limit. I mean, you can see that from this exercise where we even tried to let the stick fly away. Go and look for this limit, because you have a lot to gain along the way. In general, we want to gain a physical and mental stick control and learn how little influence we need to play what we want. Anyone who has this foundation will be spared a lot of frustration, problems and even pain. Stick tricks and gimmicks like in this video are like ball tricks for athletes. You don't usually need them in the real world, but they improve your feeling for the equipment and how much freedom you can give it. Because a stick is an extension of us mentally, not physically. Our body gives an impulse so that the stick then plays the drum or cymbal. Depending on the goal, posture and technique change. And the more we can let it do on its own, the better. To do this, we have to learn how the stick behaves and where we can get out of its way. Our technique is the interface between what we want to play and what we and the audience actually hear in the end. Good technique ensures that you can convey exactly what you set out to do musically. What I would like to give you here are concrete exercises, but mostly a new way to think about your technique. Few drummers really play with such complete openness, me neither, but moving the control a little in this direction has helped me tremendously on the drums and helped countless students of mine. I hope you too. If so, please give something back as well. I am providing you with knowledge and experience from almost 20 years of teaching practice, free of charge. And these videos take several weeks of work, so please think about it. If you would have learned all of this from a lesson you took, what would you be willing to pay for it? Please donate this amount using the link in the description. I can only continue with these videos with this channel with your support. If you want to go further, check out my Patreon page. There you are part of an exclusive community and, among other things, you are invited to a large workshop once a year and also receive other privileges. You can also find the link in the description, of course. If you want to improve your drumming technique even further, check out my channel. Among other things, you can find an entire playlist on foot technique with 12 parts, including bonus PDFs on adjusting the pedals, a practice plan for double bass drum, and much, much more. Also completely free for you. And if you're looking for a basic guide for your progress on the drums, then I recommend the Drum Quest books, a series in 10 parts that I co-wrote, which will take you from the absolute beginner to professional drummer. The first 4 are already available, more will follow soon. If you've already played a little, you can also start directly with stage 2 or 3. The books systematically build up your skills for playing rock and pop. There's always a concrete connection to music. The topic of drum culture is also taken into account. It should be a real basic course. I hope you check out the books and see you in the next video. Until then, take care and bye bye.